All right, good morning, class. Mr. Hagen here. So today, what we're going to be going over is character types in plays, in drama. So we've gone over a little bit about what is a drama in certain elements and aspects of it, the two types. Today, we're going to be talking about the characters. So I'm going to be reading along, so I want you to follow along with your PowerPoint as I'm giving this lesson. So if you go to the second slide, character types and plays, the first one that we're going to talk about is the protagonist. We should all be familiar with this one as it is the hero of the story, right? The pro, meaning the pro side of the struggle, the person that is going through the story, the point of view that we're looking at from the story. Usually like the lead character, so in a play of like the tragedy, that would be the hero, the tragic hero, and so on. Next, we have the antagonist, the anti-side of the struggle. This is typically the bad guy, but it could be anyone. So anyone that goes against the main plot of the story, that hinders the protagonist in the story, good guy, bad guy, whatever, is the antagonist. Next, we have the foil, which is a character that shows opposite characteristics of the main character, typically. So if you've ever seen Cinderella, right, her stepsisters, they all kind of have similar living conditions, but the stepsisters, they're surly, they're kind of mean, they are selfish, and those are all characteristics that are opposite of Cinderella, who's very considerate, very kind. So the foil doesn't necessarily need to be like a villain, need to be an antagonist, but it can be. But we'll go a little bit more into the examples as the PowerPoint goes on. The next character is the confidant. So that is someone in whom the central character confides. And the protagonist talks to this person. It could be a best friend. In Diary of a Wimpy Kid, it's actually not really a confidant, like in the sense of a person, but you could consider the diary that he's writing as the confidant because it's what the main character is kind of expressing. It could be maybe the main character's goldfish that he talks to every day, but as long as you get to reveal the character's personalities, thoughts, intentions using another character, whether it's living or non-living, that will be the confidant, which means the person the main character talks to. And you find more about the character's personality from what they confess or what they confide in with the confidant. Next, we have the stock character, which is kind of an indistinguishable character. The stock character is very flat. So if you are filming a movie or you're watching a movie where maybe there's a scene where the two main characters are talking in the library and you have the librarian in the background going, shh, and that's kind of her only role in the movie, that's a stock character. Those are the characters that are in the background that really don't have any character development. They have no real focus in the story and they're kind of just there to be there. Right, so some other archetypes for that, you might find like the dumb jock in like a high school movie, like I said, the shushing old librarian, or maybe like the mean principal that's just like rah, 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 in the film. That really doesn't have any kind of the narrator. It's not in every film, but anything that has the whole once upon a time and explains what's happening, that's the narrator. They're not really a character in the story, but they're telling you about what's happening in the story. I'll actually go back and say that it could be a character in the story. As long as they're the one that's actually telling the story, then it could be. So if we go down to slide 3, I've provided some examples. So I'm using Lion King, but it's about him, his fall and his rise to power following the death of his father. He's the hero of the story who is trying to save the Pride Lands, essentially, or become king. Next, you have, if you go to the 4th slide, you have the antagonist, which is Scar. He is the evil brother of Mufasa. He's the one who kills Mufasa. He's the one that drives Simba from the land. So for foil, right, these are characters that have their characteristics are kind of opposite of the main characters. And I put Scar and Mufasa as foil characters just to kind of prove the point that you don't need to have a villain to have a foil, right? So let's just say that Scar and Mufasa are both foil characters for Simba, right? They're both opposite Simba in some way or another. So you have Scar, who is this evil, cowardly, like conniving, sneaky person, but so that only enhances Simba's honesty and his bravery, things like that, right? So those characteristics are opposite. So next, we see, using the example of Mufasa, right, that when Mufasa's in the story, we see that the type of leader that he is. He's strong, he's confident, he's capable, and he has no sense of self-doubt. But before Simba goes back to the Pride Lands, when he's hanging out with Timon and Pumbaa, he's very insecure and he's very unsure of himself and his place in the universe, his place in the story. So this is how we can consider Mufasa a potential foil character for Simba, is that Mufasa's confidence, right, it's opposite of Simba's insecurity before he goes back. So it doesn't need to necessarily be an antagonist, but typically you will have an antagonist foil. You can have foils that are not the antagonist, that can be, secondary heroes, right? So Mufasa, he wasn't a bad guy. He was actually one of the greater characters in the story in terms of who's good and who's evil. Next, we have the confidant. So these are characters that the hero or the protagonist confides in, and you learn a little bit more about the main characters from their confidants and what they tell them. So in the beginning of Lion King, right, when Simba is still a cub, he's still younger, he sings a song to Zazu, right, I can't wait to be king, and he expresses his desire and his excitement to eventually rule over this kingdom. So this is where we're getting a little bit more about the personality of Simba, that he's very hot-headed, that he is, excited, that he's kind of cocky. He is showing an excitement in potentially being the leader of the Pride Lands eventually. But we see Timon and Pumbaa towards the, the middle half, like the second half of the story, where he confides in them as he's growing up, this sense of insecurity, like I mentioned before in Simba, that he doesn't really want to rule anything, that he wants to kind of forget the past and let the kingdom, survive without him, that he has no desire to be king. So it's the importance of the confidant that we're seeing is that they are showing character development within the story, that what Simba told Zazu at the beginning, right, that he's excited to be king, versus what he tells Timon and Pumbaa later on, that he doesn't want to be king. These are really important aspects of the story that through a confidant we find out. And there really aren't any stock characters or if we go to slide 7, there are really no stock characters in Lion King. But I'd say that you can make an argument that background, they just serve as they're the characters that bow once, Rafiki holds the, young Simba or Simba's son at the end of the movie on Pride Rock. So they're kind of stock characters in that they don't really have a role. They don't have any character development. It's not like, the elephants are seen in the movie going through some great journey. They're just kind of there. They're kind of just bowing. And the narrator really isn't a narrator in Lion King. There's no voice in the beginning that says once upon a time in the Pride Lands. No. So if you have the narrator, it's very, very clear. Once you have the voice in the background, that's the narrator. So for your assignment today, I have, along with the stream, I want you to look at the YouTube video that I posted on Google Classroom. It's going to show several clips from SpongeBob SquarePants, right? I'm sure that you're all familiar with it, but if you're not, it's hilarious. So you're going to watch this clip, right? It's about 5 minutes long. And then afterwards, you are going to fill out a worksheet in which you're going to have several characters from SpongeBob. And you're going to determine, in these clips, whether or not they are the narrator, the hero, the protagonist, the antagonist, the foil, the confidant, or a stock character. And you're going to provide evidence from the actual clip itself. I don't want you to think about SpongeBob in terms of the show, because I want you just to focus on the clip and how they're behaving in the clips and use that as evidence. If you have any questions, you can shoot me an email. I'm on Google Hangouts. If you have access to Discord, I'll be sure to check that today. And make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Thank you very much.